I don't know what you guys are talking about. I have not gained any weight at all, and there's nothing odd about me at all. Okay, this is the Define 7. It's not the R7, just the Define 7, and we've got an interesting color scheme to work with here. I initially thought that I had requested the black on black model, but we've got black on white, and that, or white on black, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, we got a white interior, and that's going to pose some problems for us. Putting a black motherboard in here would kind of defeat the purpose of going with a white interior. So I think we're going to use a white motherboard. It's going to be a B350 board, but we've flashed the BIOS to work with the newer Ryzen CPUs. Not sure what kind of cooler we're going to go with. I do have a 1070 Ti from Galax that we're going to use. It's also white, and we've got black and white cables. So let's make this build look as pretty as possible and ignore the weird parts choices and ultimately the budget, which I'm sure is going to be all out of whack because we're going to have like a $200 case with like budget conscious components. So ignore that.
If you're sick of seeing that same Activate Windows watermark over and over, snag an OEM license from SCD Key. You'll have a fully activated OS in seconds, and you can kiss that watermark goodbye. And be sure to use menu offer code GSL for that sweet discount.
So first up on the parts list, Ryzen 5 2600. You can find these for like $100 or somewhere around there. I'm not sure if they're still in stock, especially now with all the crap going on in the world, but it's a really good value chip. Probably not a surprise that I chose that. Then we have a B350 Tomahawk Arctic, and the only reason I'm using this one is because it has a white PCB, or off-white PCB, but it looked pretty good with the white internals of the Define 7. Then we've got a GeForce GTX 1070 Ti from Galax that is also white. I don't think the PCB's white, but it has like a white shroud and a white backplate and white LEDs built in, so that'll look nice, given the interior color. And then we have two things from Team Group that are admittedly not white, but one of them you probably won't even see. Yeah, the SSD, I think we're gonna mount behind the motherboard tray. And then the RAM, these just look sick. They're called Extreme RGB Modules, and they look freaking cool. So actually part sponsor for this video, so I really appreciate them doing that for us. And I'm really curious to see what these look like in a system. And like black, sure, I guess kind of, but then like the whole, like the remainder of the DIMM is like totally lit up in this RGB rainbow effect. So I think we're gonna be able to do some really cool stuff with those. This is all linked below, by the way, if you're interested. The last thing we gotta do, you wanna just pan over there, it's too far away from me. That is the Castle 240EX that has the anti-leak tech, which has that kind of pressure relief valve that will keep your fluid pressure, all that stuff stabilized under load. So we're gonna throw all that into this, and as we go, I'll give you some feedback on the case itself. I'm sure you've already seen reviews of the Define 7, but you know, nice to get some live feedback while we're building. Let's get to it. Now remember, B350 boards, unless otherwise stated, will not support Zen Plus chips natively, and for that matter, Zen 2 chips. I'm only using Zen Plus here, but I have already updated the BIOS on this motherboard, so should be plug and play as is. I'm pretty sure I've actually used this exact 2600 in this board before, so yay for recycling. So, lifting that AM4 socket lever, drop her right in. Plop her down, she's good to go. Actually just noticed we already have the Deep Cool AIO mounting gear already installed on this board, so that's like half the battle, right? Oh, look at there. I was literally preparing to grill Fractal over including fan mounts on the top of this chassis without any, you know, mesh or grill up here. But you get a big old mesh top panel, which is super cool. So maybe you prioritize sound, and you might not want to put anything up top and keep it as is. Maybe you prefer airflow. You just want to swap this puppy out. You can totally do that. It looks like it's just held in place by a few of these little retention clips. So no tools even required. Let's see if we can pop it off. Wow, that's like super easy. This is really cool. That was easier than I thought it would be, but it's still sturdy, right? Like, I mean, it's on there. All right, that looks pretty sick, not gonna lie. Oh yeah, look at that, we've got the sound damping material in here. So yeah, you are definitely saving on sound if you stick with the closed off panel. But again, airflow, sound, which do you prefer? Okay, lay this thing down. She's a big one, you know, despite being a mid tower by definition because of the 7 PCIe slots, she's a thick one. All right, and we've got pre-installed standoffs, including one that just makes sure things are lined up. Yeah, definitely not an exact match on the color scheme inside, but you know what? I'll take this over a black motherboard. And yeah, that's what she looks like. Again, motherboard is more of a cool white, and the internals of the case are more neutral, slightly warmish white. So not a perfect match, but again, a lot closer than a black PCB would have been. Oh yeah. These are some sexy modules, if I do say so myself. Now it says first to insert DIMM 2A and DIMM 2B, or A2B2. So we're gonna start here. Now see, this is kind of a touchy subject because I think a lot of people like this form factor. Obviously that's why Fractal sticks with it. But when you go with just a mid tower like this and you want to use a conventional 240mm AIO, some of these are just, like, the tubes are barely long enough, you know, and that's with the fans facing toward the front, right on the front side of the radiator. If I switch these around and put the fans on the inside, there's no way this would reach. And that's part of the problem that I have with the Define series, namely the larger Define cases. I think they're a little too long for most people. Granted, yeah, having the hard drive space and all that is nice, but in a mid tower, I mean, doesn't it make sense if it's gonna be this long to make it a bit taller just to give it 8 PCI slots and call it a full tower? And I'm actually questioning whether or not I wanna use this AIO, just because it's gonna look so weird being so stretched out. What do you think, Nate?
Yep.
Nate agrees. Do you even know what I'm asking?
Nope.
Nope, he has no. All right, so I'm changing my mind. We're gonna go with a 360mm rad. I think we're gonna do an X63 or X73 AIO. Sorry, that's probably really loud. From NZXT. Which should have slightly longer tubing and should fill up the front of the case a bit more, so it doesn't look like we have so much dead space in here. So this little panel here is removable somehow. Again, I should really consider reading the manual. Oh, that hurt really bad. There we go though, we have space. So we've gone with the X73. Always a bit tricky to get fans mounted in front of a radiator for a build like this. Kind of have to get the fans in there first and then start shimmying these screws with washers after the fact. So unfortunately, we don't have 120mm mounts that go above here. This is actually where you'd have an optical drive, but it's an optional 140mm mount as well. They could have included 120mm support up here, but they decided not to, which means our entire radiator fan assembly is going to be quite low in this build. I would like to have raised it a bit higher, some dead space above here. It's just call me picky, but it's just kind of annoying me. Also, just realized that I have these fans installed backwards. We're not going to change it. Mounting gear going in. Now don't worry, I've got pre-applied thermal paste so you can chill out. You guys hear me? Chill out. There we go. Now don't worry, something very cool about the X73 is that you can rotate the logo to face any direction your heart desires. So we've kind of got it in an unorthodox way now, but imagine this being the NZXT logo. Oh, look at that. Oh yeah. Oh mama. I think these fan cables will barely reach. Oh yeah, next day, by the way, that's why I'm shaved. Ladies? No wait, I'm married. Are you freaking kidding me? And now for the small stuff. USB 3 through there, HD audio somewhere under here, and front IO somewhere over here. Yeah, totally broken this USB 3 bracket, but USB 3 connectors suck. So again, I like to cable manage as I go with these builds. I say that pretty much every build. And this is gonna be kind of hard for Nate to pick up, but I'm wrapping this cable underneath the AIO standoffs to keep it hidden from view. This is just the pump cable here. So you can see we've got it kind of wrapped around now, and you only really see it here at the top. So nice way to conceal some of your cables. The rest of these we're gonna tuck underneath. And yeah, usually you wanna run these up to the top and behind the motherboard tray, but because our connectors are facing the bottom of the case, I think what we're gonna do is have them run here, and they'll be kind of concealed by our graphics card. Now this would be one of my favorite 1070 Ti SKUs, if not for the fact that this card is a bit off-white. And it's more off-white than the other two off-white things already in our build. So this is just gonna be a cluster of cream and cool white colors, I guess. So you can see here, this is definitely a warmer white. This is kind of a neutral white. Fractal did pretty good with this color. And then the motherboard is like a cool white. So with all three in here, it's not terrible, but if you're a stickler for this kind of stuff, it's gonna bother the heck out of you. So I apologize in advance. Careful not to scratch this paint. White is usually easy to scratch, and I guarantee you there ain't white under the white, so you're gonna see the scratches. It'll be very noticeable in a white case, or even a case with white internals. I'm gonna go ahead and install this graphics card because it's just bothering the crap out of me seeing these cables here. So we'll try to use this to keep them locked in place. Let's see. Nice, and you can see the cables kind of just run underneath. The graphics card are behind it, but next to the chipset. So I think it's a pretty clean run the way it is. We're making do with what we have. Let's go ahead and get this card locked in. Nate, I'm kind of surprised you're still filming. You know what we're gonna have to do, and someone suggested this on Twitter, I think it's pretty smart. We're just gonna have to light this entire case up with a certain color, maybe like blue, and the blue LED should make all of these white surfaces appear the same color, blue, because white tends to reflect whatever color is being shown at it. So yeah, it's gonna look kind of trashy, a bit disturbing with lights off, but when your system is on, it should all kind of blend. I'm at least hoping that's the case, because if it doesn't, this is gonna be really awkward. All right, so the remaining things to do after we get this AIO wired up, we need to install the power supply along with those custom cables, and then install this colorful SSD. Now we're gonna be using a Corsair RM1000X power supply, which is extreme overkill for this kind of system. With this, you could run a 500 watt unit and be perfectly fine. The only reason I'm using such an overkill PSU is because the custom sleeve cables in here are gonna look perfect, or near perfect, with this black and white color scheme. You'll see what I'm talking about. You guys don't wanna know how many times we've had to retake this shot. Oh yeah, is this good enough acting for you, Nate? We got them black and white cables for days. Now, we're gonna be inevitably tearing this PC down about 30 minutes after we get it up and running, but I wanna make the system look good. And despite having clashing white color schemes going on inside, I think the black and white's gonna kind of, I don't know, do a good enough job transitioning between the black exterior and the white interior, which can admittedly be a bit hard on the eyes. This is a peculiar case just from a color scheme perspective. They do offer many different color combinations, mind you. But I wanted to be different. I hadn't seen anyone build in the white interior one, so I figured we'd try. I think these cables are perfect for it. Got some Beefcakes McGee in here. You getting all that, Nate? Yeah. You load this in from the back. Yeah. This was a cool concept a few years ago, but I'm starting to realize that this is just kind of a pain in the butt. You gotta run all these cables through here and scratch them all up. Like, I just want an easy install, and it's frankly easier to do from the right panel, at least in my experience. I do like this bracket though. 2 thumb screws and we good to go. 8-pin EPS. All right, we got the 24-pin. Swing her around. Yeah. Okay, so you see what I mean? I mean, black and white, it does a decent job blending things. The PCI cable's not really a huge fan of how these look here, just because we don't have like a dedicated graphics card supplemental power cutout here in the case. But I tried to make them look as good as I could. At the end of the day, yeah, I mean, I don't really know how else we could wrap these. And we only have 1 cable comb for each of these cables, so all this dead space back here is gonna look a little rat's nesty. Yeah, that's about it. Last thing to do, SSD time. Oh yeah, BRB, and there we go. Thumb screw to secure. And now we just need to wire this thing up to the system. We can power it on. Actually, we should probably cable manage before we start everything up. Now, Fractal has included these little cable channels, but they've got these ridges in them, which I don't really like, because you have to kind of split your 24-pin up into groups, especially if you have like a custom sleeve kit, to get it to fit in there. I mean, once it's in, it's nice, but it's just kind of a pain. I'd rather have 1 big cable channel than like 3 smaller ones. And the signature touch. Little cable cover here for the bottom. You know what I just realized is our SSD is blocking the standoff that holds this panel in from below. That kind of blows. So we're gonna have to move this one over here. Should be a pretty quick swap. We'll just swap the trays. All right, yeah. I mean, apart from this short PWM cable, it's just too short for running down below. Everything else looks to be pretty good. A bit of a trouble getting this little bottom cover on because these cables are pretty thick. And yeah, that's really it. I honestly like the option of running cables here. And that would be better just to kind of free flow them down here, but they wanted this to be a modular panel, somewhat removable if you want to mount things back here or even hard drives. So I kind of see why they moved it back here, but then that kind of, and then you don't have as much space for cable routing. And what I liked about Fractal cases was you had all this extra space thanks to the kind of indented panel next to the motherboard tray for cable routing. So the fact they took that away, or at least kind of made this modular, I don't know, it loses the cable, like this thing keeps popping out. I can't even, I'm trying to keep it in. It just loses the cable management flair that Fractal cases usually have. All right, now this should be pretty easy to do. Like, how does this even, oh, maybe I just do it like that. Okay, yeah, probably it. Oh yeah, piece of cake. Now that's what I'm talking about, Fractal. And the left side panel, same thing from the bottom. Boom, clips in. Good to go. I think the coolest part about the system now that it's on, it's gotta be those DDR4 modules. Those Team Group modules look really good. And the RGB is diffused so beautifully from the top that any effect that you enable, it's just gonna look so nice. So really good job from Team Group for those, and appreciate them sponsoring those components, the SSD and the RAM for this video. The graphics card, you can see it's got white LEDs underneath the back plate, also white GeForce GTX logo. The NZXT is set to a white color right now, and then we also have white LEDs behind the motherboard. These are more blue, white-ish RGBs, and then the ones behind the motherboard look like genuine, true white LEDs. So still not matching. I just realized we don't even have an RGB strip in here, so there's really no way to kind of get all this to blend nicely unless we throw one of those in here. But it's still not bad. I mean, you could really customize this however you want. That's, of course, the joy of RGB, even though I am getting seriously tired of it by this point. But I wanted to give you guys kind of just a, I don't know, behind the scenes tour of the Fractal Define 7, Fractal Design Define 7, I should say. And I almost said Define R7, I almost did, I almost slipped up. But it's a good case. Look, it needs to be a bit shorter, a few kinks here and there, but they've done a lot to improve on this design, and they've been doing so for what, the past 5 or 6 generations. I mean, this is the 7th iteration of the Define series, and it gets better every time. It's pretty expensive, but you get a lot for the money. So it just depends on how you allocate your budget and your resources. You can end up with a system like this. If you want to get the black one, you could do a totally blacked out color scheme. Black and red would look sweet. You guys know how it works. If you like the case, you can check it out in the link below, along with all the other parts used in this build. If you guys want to click the subscribe button, I would appreciate that. You can consider liking the video, leave a comment down below, and I will catch you in the next one. My name's Greg. Thanks for building with me.